Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1992, is a visually stunning gothic horror epic that brings the most iconic monster of them all, Dracula, back to his literary roots. Unlike earlier cinematic takes on the character, this version remains more faithful to Stoker's novel, while also adding a tragic love story that transforms Dracula into a tormented, seductive figure, rather than just a monstrous villain. With breathtaking cinematography, practical effects, and powerhouse performances, the film stands out as one of the most unique and lavish adaptations of Dracula ever made. Gary Oldman's Dracula is one of the most layered and visually striking interpretations of the character. He isn't just a bloodthirsty fiend, he's a tragic, vengeful figure cursed by his grief and undying love. The film presents him in multiple forms: an ancient, decayed nobleman in Transylvania, with a ghostly pale face and blood-red armor shaped like muscle and sinew. A youthful, handsome prince when in London, seductive and elegant. A monstrous creature, whether as a bat-like demon, a wolf, or a shadow that moves independently of his body. Oldman's performance is both menacing and deeply sorrowful, making his Dracula sympathetic yet terrifying, a complex villain who is both predator and victim of his immortality. While the film has a tragic love story at its core, it never forgets that Dracula is a horror tale first and foremost. Coppola leans into gothic horror with unsettling visuals. From Dracula's crawling shadow to his grotesque transformations, the film is filled with eerie, unnatural imagery. Intense bloodshed. The film doesn't shy away from vampiric brutality, featuring gory feeding scenes, impalements, and eerie moments of Dracula drinking from his victims in both sensual and horrific ways. Psychological horror. Jonathan Harker's, Keanu Reeves, imprisonment in Dracula's castle, plays like a slow descent into madness, surrounded by vampiric brides and impossible nightmares. Dreamlike horror sequences. The film often blurs the line between reality and illusion, making Dracula's presence feel inescapable. Coppola also uses practical effects and in-camera tricks to create a timeless, nightmarish atmosphere, reminiscent of silent-era horror films like Nosferatu, 1922. While staying largely faithful to Bram Stoker's Dracula, Coppola adds a romantic backstory. Dracula is not just an evil monster, but a prince who has waited centuries to find the reincarnation of his lost love. Dracula believes Mina, Winona Ryder, is the reincarnation of his dead wife, and instead of simply preying on her, he tries to win her over through seduction and supernatural charm. This love story adds a tragic dimension to Dracula, making him both a romantic figure and a terrifying monster. The film also keeps the novel's structure intact, with diary entries, letters, and different perspectives guiding the narrative, giving it an epic, multi-character feel. Then 30-plus years later, Bram Stoker's Dracula remains visually stunning and unique. Its practical effects, gothic cinematography, and commitment to a dreamlike, eerie atmosphere make it timeless compared to CGI-heavy modern horror films. For classic horror fans, the film is a masterpiece of gothic cinema, blending old-school horror with a grand, operatic style. For general audiences, the film's slow pacing, theatrical performances, and romantic angle may feel melodramatic or overly stylized. For Dracula fans, it's one of the most faithful yet original takes on the character, adding depth while still keeping the core horror intact. While Keanu Reeves's performance is often mocked, the film's sheer visual and artistic beauty, along with Oldman's unforgettable Dracula, make it a lasting horror classic. Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1992, is a gothic horror epic that blends romance, tragedy, and pure nightmare fuel into one of the most visually stunning adaptations of Dracula ever made. While not perfect, due to some uneven performances and melodrama, it remains one of the most memorable and ambitious takes on the legendary vampire. If you love gothic horror, lavish cinematography, and a Dracula who is both monstrous and tragic, this film is a must-watch.